All right, Jen, shall we kick off?
Sounds good. Are Mona and Moxie ready to go?
Mona, you can feel free to jump in. Oh,
Moxie's got
okay,
us.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, Moxie. Well, hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Jen Benka, the Executive Director of the Literary Arts Fund. We want to thank you for joining us for our information session on our 2026 Innovation Project Grant applications. For a quick visual description, I'm a white person with light brown gray hair, wearing a blue shirt and brown framed glasses.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Campagna. I'm the Literary Arts Fund's Engagement Director. A visual description of myself. I am a white woman with chin-length red hair, and I'm wearing a black button-up shirt. I want to first share a few quick notes for our live audience. This webinar is being recorded, and registrants to the webinar will receive a link to the video recording and a copy of today's presentation via email next week. If you're using an AI note-taking platform or bot, or are using Zoom's built-in note-taking app, we kindly request that you turn it off or have your bot leave the webinar. This is mainly to ensure that you retain as accurate information as possible about the fund's activities and opportunities, in addition to using the guidelines and resources we're making available to all applicants. We want to thank our ASL interpreters, Mona and Moxie, for working with us today. If you need to turn on captions, click the CC or the captions button at the bottom of your screen. As we are in Zoom webinar mode, you can submit any questions you have using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And as our time is limited, we likely won't get to all of your questions. In addition to learning about the innovation project grants through this info session, please refer to the FAQ page on our website, literaryartsfund.org, which is regularly updated. You can also email your questions to grants@literaryartsfund.org. Due to the number of inquiries the fund receives, it may take some time to receive a response. We're grateful for your keeping your questions today to the current call for innovation project applications. Please note that we'll hold a separate information session in January of 2027 about our next call for general operating proposals. We encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter to stay informed about future info session dates. And now I want to turn things over to Jen.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We also want to start by thanking all of those of you who submitted questions with your registration form. Very helpful for us on this side of things. And we've tried to incorporate helpful information in what we'll share here, which will be a lot. So we thank you for your attention. As many of you may know, on June 8th, we opened our second call for applications of the year, this time for Innovation Project grant applications. Applications are now being accepted, and we're looking for new, one-time, and forward-thinking projects that aim to address critical infrastructural or structural challenges that, if improved or solved, would ultimately strengthen literary arts nonprofits' abilities to serve creative writers. Proposed projects, which may be collaborative, should align with this description and goals and have impact beyond the project timeline. There are a few things we want to point out about that description. Namely, the projects should be new. They shouldn't be ongoing. They should have a start and end date. While the funding is intended to support one-time activity, we hope that the projects will have lasting positive impact or effect, or aim to. Projects should not focus on programmatic initiatives, which are ongoing offerings to an audience in fulfillment of a mission. Also, please keep in mind that projects will need to demonstrate how they ultimately benefit creative writers. While in future years, the Literary Arts Fund might ask that applications and proposed projects speak to specific topics or themes, In 2026, as this is the first year of the fund, we have tried to keep this call as broad as possible while at the same time being aligned with the fund's mission and overall strategies so that you have an opportunity to define the challenges that you see and propose the solutions that you think make the most sense. In case it's helpful, though, we do want to offer a reflection prompt that is in your nonprofit's work to serve creative writers. What do they need? And what might you be able to fix or greatly improve or innovate in 1 year with some one-time resources? We will be awarding a total of $1 million through this program. And based on the fact that this opportunity is an open call, that limited amount that will be awarded and the focus on seeking forward-thinking, critical projects, we anticipate that this grant opportunity and funding will be highly competitive. As always, please take that into consideration as you assess your capacity to prepare a proposal, which will take time for you to complete. We also want to note that it's advised not to build in grant funds to your annual operating budget unless your nonprofit has received confirmation of a grant award. In addition to what has already been shared, additional characteristics of strong applications include meeting all eligibility requirements and technical requirements. And by the latter, we mean successfully uploading all of the documents that are requested in the application and completing all of the sections of the application. Second, having a clearly defined and compelling challenge and proposed solution, and presenting a realistic timeline and budget. The grant award amounts will range from $25,000 to $100,000. Applicants will be asked to specify a requested amount. You do not need to demonstrate that you have raised funds to match that requested amount from other sources. Other funding, pending or committed, is not required. That is to say, it's okay if you're asking the Literary Arts Fund to cover 100% of the project costs. That will not make your application less competitive. If awarded, grant amounts will be informed by the proposed project and the budget that you submit. It is possible that grant amounts awarded may be less than you request. There is a question in the application that asks you how you would scale back or adapt the project if that were to be the case. Thoughtfully completing that question will help reviewers. Literary arts nonprofits' annual operating budgets may also be considered. Applicants will need to identify the project's period. That is when the project will start and when it will end. That project period can start anytime after January 1st. We want to make sure that funds are on hand and must end within 12 months or by December 31st. If your project can be completed in less than 12 months, that's fine. If it's a 3-month project period, no problem. Grant funds, however, need to be fully spent during the project period. There are two ways for literary arts nonprofits to apply for an innovation project grant. First, an eligible nonprofit or a fiscally sponsored organization or publisher can apply independently. You can apply by yourselves for a project that you are looking to undertake alone, or eligible nonprofits, and again, also including fiscally sponsored organizations or publishers, can apply as the lead of a collaborative innovation project. To note, an applicant serving as the lead of a collaborative project can also be a collaborator on other folks' applications. For collaborative innovation project applications, a few notes. Only one nonprofit will submit an application on behalf of a collaborative project, and that nonprofit will be responsible for that project. Collaborators will be listed in the application and potentially in the project budget. Collaborators certainly can be non-literary from other artistic disciplines, for profit, etc. However, only literary arts nonprofits that meet the Literary Arts Fund's eligibility requirements may receive a subaward. And by subaward, we mean project funds that will cover expenses related to the project's fulfillment from the Literary Arts Fund's grant dollars and be listed in the project budget. Please note, there's no limit on the number of collaborators a proposed collaborative project can have. In addition, there's no limit on the number of times a nonprofit can be listed as a collaborator on applications. It will be important for applicants to weigh, and we would encourage you to really think about how either or both might affect the overall competitiveness of the project, mostly because it could raise a concern for reviewers about the applicant or collaborator potentially being overextended. With regard to the Innovation Project Grants relationship to general operating grants and eligibility, briefly and quickly, if your nonprofit did not receive a 2026 general operating grant, it's eligible to apply for an innovation project grant independently this year or as the lead of a collaborative were to be listed as a collaborator on another collaborative application. If your nonprofit did receive a 2026 general operating grant, it is eligible to be listed as part of a collaborative in 2026 and to receive subawards, as noted in the project budget from the Literary Arts Fund. It is not, however, eligible to apply for a 2026 Innovation Project Grant independently or as the lead of a collaborative, but can apply in 2027. And now I will turn things back over to Michelle, who will talk a little bit more about eligibility.
Sure, thanks, Jen. So, in order to apply for an innovation project grant, an applicant must be an independent nonprofit or fiscally sponsored literary arts organization or publisher based in the US, both in terms of location and activities, whose primary mission directly supports adult creative writers in making their artistic work and sharing it with readers in at least one of the following ways. One, presenting them at public events for readers and audiences. Two, publishing their work in print or digital publications. Three, building their readership through things like feature articles, interviews, reviews, online archives, or podcasts. Four, providing them with writing residencies, retreats, mentorship, or workshops. And five, recognizing their artistic achievement through awards, fellowships, or prizes. In addition, to be eligible to apply, nonprofits must be post-pilot, as demonstrated by having been established for 3 years or more, based on the date of nonprofit incorporation at the time of application. If the applicant is fiscally sponsored, this would be based on the contract date between the fiscal sponsor and the applicant. A nonprofit also would need to have leadership stability, as demonstrated by a current executive director who has led the nonprofit through at least 12 consecutive months, 1 full year of operations, and have financial stability, as demonstrated by an annual operating budget of at least $50,000, not including in-kind contributions. For fiscally sponsored organizations and publishers, it is the organization or publisher, not the fiscal sponsor, that must meet this requirement. Because the Literary Arts Fund is a short-term project, its strategy is focused on areas it has determined that it might have the greatest impact. Because of this, the Literary Arts Fund's grant-making strategy doesn't include the following: dramatic arts nonprofits, whose primary mission is focused on screenwriters and playwrights; storytelling nonprofits with a primary mission of supporting this oral art form; arts therapy nonprofits that focus on writing for its therapeutic purposes; nonprofits, initiatives, and projects that are a department or division of, or are fiscally sponsored by a college or university. Additionally, the Literary Arts Fund's grant-making strategy doesn't include nonprofits whose primary mission is to support young writers, arts education nonprofits that focus on increasing K through 12 students' access to and learning through the arts, literacy nonprofits that focus on developing or strengthening reading and writing skills and abilities, academic, research, school, and public libraries, and finally, trade and service organizations whose primary mission is serving other nonprofits and not creative writers directly. To better prepare literary arts nonprofits for the application process, we strongly advise reviewing the downloadable PDF guide to the innovation project application. The PDF guide can be found on the grants page of literaryartsfund.org under the 2026 Innovation Project Grants section. The process for applying is as follows. You'd visit literaryartsfund.org and click on the grants link in the main menu. You'd scroll down to the Innovation Project Grant section of that page and click on the blue Apply button. You'll then be directed to Submittable, an online application platform. You will need to create a free Submittable account to use this application platform if you don't already have one, and then go ahead and sign in with your login credentials. There are two parts to the Innovation Project Grant application in Submittable. First, an eligibility quiz, and second, the application form. The eligibility quiz is a series of yes or no questions based on the eligibility requirements and Innovation Project Grant guidelines. If your literary arts nonprofit answers all of the questions in the eligibility quiz correctly, then you'll be taken to the application form. The application form has 4 sections that collect general, numeric, and narrative information about the applicant, each collaborator, if applicable, and the innovation project proposal. The final section of the application requires applicants to certify information submitted in the application. Please note that the certification includes applicants confirming that generative AI was not used to write your project narrative. Also, lead applicants of collaborative applications will be asked to certify that you'll ensure the implementation of the project, including verifying the eligibility for any collaborator receiving subawards from the Literary Arts Fund. I'm going to ask Jen to come back to share some information about project budgets.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. So some tips for the project budget. First, please make sure that the project budget includes costs related to the project only. It shouldn't include any general operating costs. We would ask that you be specific and add details, explanations of revenue and expense items, including subawards allocated to eligible collaborators. And again, those funds coming from the Literary Arts Fund. Direct costs and expenses are those that are necessary to complete the project. Indirect costs or expenses are your overhead. And for the Literary Arts Fund's purposes, you are welcome to include indirect costs up to 20%. And another way of saying that, or just a quick handy way of calculating that, is your direct costs times 0.20. If you need a template project budget as well as a template for an annual budget, they're both provided in the application in Submittable, and you can also find links to them in the application guide, that downloadable PDF that Michelle mentioned. We also want to note that we presented an information session covering best practices for preparing annual operating and project budgets not that long ago. And there is a recording of that session as well as the deck on the Literary Arts Fund's website under the grants page and information sessions section. And now we want to take you through that template. So we're going to move from text to a spreadsheet. Okay, here goes. All right. So what are we looking at? This is the template that we're providing. We wanted to show you this. Again, you'll find it in the application form and guide. This first template here that you're looking at is for independent projects. You'll see that there is space for you to indicate your nonprofit's name and the project period. That's at the top of column A and column B, that those cells are highlighted. The top half of the budget is related to income. Column B is the total income for the project, including other funding you may have pending or committed from other sources. Note that in this column, funding should be itemized according to its source, and we've listed the typical sources here for you all: foundations, individual, corporate, or other. Other can include in kind. And if you do have in kind uh, revenue or income, the equivalent of revenue or income in your project, we would just ask you to detail that in column E. Column C on the income side is where you'd indicate the amount you're requesting from the Literary Arts Fund, and you do so on the foundation line. If the only income you have for your project is your pending Literary Arts Fund grant request, again, that's okay. You would note that in column B and C. Those columns would be the same, and column D on the income side would be blank. If you do have other funding pending or committed for the proposed project, you would record that in column D on the appropriate line, again, whether it's foundation income or individual, corporate, or other, again, including in kind. And you would make sure that that amount that's listed in column D is also listed in column B, along with the amount that you're requesting from the Literary Arts Fund that's noted in column C. Uh, it's helpful, that column E, that details column, again, for you to provide as much information as possible that you think would be helpful to reviewers and panelists. On the other funding, if you do have other funding, it would be super helpful if you could note um, where that revenue is coming from. On the expense side of the budget, moving to the bottom half, you can see project expenses. You'll see that there are two sections: direct project costs and indirect project costs. Um, Direct project costs, again, are those expenses that are directly related to your project and are required. They're essential to undertaking and completing the project. Some examples might include staffing, and you can see highlighted here, we've provided that kind of example. Other expenses, as example, could include things like technology or equipment, consultants, supplies, or other kinds of fees. We do ask you again to specify what the expense items are in column A, and to say a little bit about the expense items in column E. As expenses relate to staffing, we would ask you to provide the rationale or justification, the formula, the equation for how you are arriving at that amount, just so we understand. And then again, indirect project costs, that part of the expense budget, that is simply a calculation, and we've provided the formula there. Again, this template is if you are doing the project yourself. Just quickly, we want to show you an example of a collaborative project budget. You'll see that this template is basically the same. It's largely the same. However, on the expense side, you will note that there is space for you to include subawards. Again, when we say subawards, we mean project funds, um, not general operating funds. And they're coming from the grant that the lead applicant would be receiving from the Literary Arts Fund, and potentially could include other funds. Um, Please detail what those funds will cover. Again, in column E, details are, again, very helpful as applications are reviewed. If you do have other funding for the project and are going to provide subawards from other sources of funds, that's fine. You can certainly list those subawards in column D. I would just say again that if subawards are allocated out of funding that you might receive from the Literary Arts Fund, those subawards will need to meet eligibility requirements of the Literary Arts Fund. On both templates, there is a section at the bottom that says Other Budget Notes. Please use that space to explain anything you think might be relevant to the budget that isn't captured numerically or in the columns above. Um, Finally, we want to note that you can and should delete all the red text here. That's just helpful information, or we hope helpful information that we provided for you all, as well as anything that you're not using. So if you only have foundation income, feel free to go ahead and delete individual contributions, corporate and other. Feel free to delete the things that are highlighted there. The form that is available in the application and that is linked to in the application guide, that PDF guide, is customizable, it's editable. That said, you don't have to use it. We are just providing it in case it's helpful, um, and we hope it is. Okay, Michelle, tossing back to you for a little bit more info.
Yes, thank you, Jen. So, on the next slide, as you'll see, the 2026 Innovation Project Grant application deadline is August 17th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Please note the time zone of this deadline as well as the local time where your nonprofit is located. In terms of the application review process, applications will be screened by Literary Arts Fund staff and a team of reviewers, then assessed by a panel. Reviewers and panelists will include creative writers and experts in the literary arts field. Founding and contributing funders to the Literary Arts Fund do not make grant award decisions. Innovation Project Grant applicants will be notified about results by December 31st, 2026 via their submittable account and email. Now I want to share some additional pointers that might help you through the application process. First, you can save a draft if you'd like to finish filling out the form at a later date. Also, Submittable will periodically auto-save your progress as you work on your application. You'll see a notification on the bottom of the application form whenever an autosave occurs. Second, if you need to modify your application for whatever reason, you will need to withdraw your initial submission from Submittable and reapply before the deadline. Third, after you submit, you may want to download a PDF copy of your application for your records, and you can easily do that in Submittable. Next, Submittable works best on Google Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. Internet Explorer is not supported, so please make sure you're using a supported browser before you begin your application. Any notifications about your application will be sent through Submittable and email. Please be sure to safe list notification emails from Submittable and check the email that you use to sign up for your submittable account regularly. Lastly, if you need additional instructions or have technical questions about Submittable, visit their resource center or contact their customer support. Oops, I think we went
We
back.
went backwards.
We did.
Sorry about that, everybody.
No
Okay,
worries. We encourage you all to visit our website, literaryartsfund.org, and sign up for our newsletter to keep informed about fund activities, grant making opportunities, and more. We also encourage you to follow us on social media. We're active on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Threads, and Blue Sky. Our handle is at Literary Arts Fund. If you have general questions about the fund, you can email info@literaryartsfund.org. For questions about grant opportunities specifically, please write to grants@literaryartsfund.org. Again, based on the number of inquiries the fund receives, please note it may take some time to receive a response. We're grateful for your patience. And we encourage you to consult the fund's grants and FAQ pages, as well as, again, that PDF guide for the innovation project grants first, as your questions may already be answered there. And with that, we'd like to respond to some of the questions that have been shared with us in the Q&A. Jen, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing slides, I'll kick us off. And so
great.
we have until around 2:45 p.m. Eastern today to answer some of your questions. And as a reminder, we will send a follow-up email next week with a link to the recording of today's session, as well as the presentation deck. Alrighty, so first question. It's a good one. How do you define innovation?
You're tossing that to me, Michelle.
I am tossing that to you, Jen.
Okay, okay, thank you. How does the Literary Arts Fund define innovation? Um, we are not offering a strict concrete definition. Again, in this year, our first year, we are trying to leave things as open as possible. However, we're offering some direction, certainly, and would just underscore that the fund will be looking to support new projects that are forward thinking. Um, they can be ingenious, they can be obvious, but they are looking to solve a problem or innovate towards solving a problem that ultimately would help literary arts nonprofits serve creative writers. So again, we've had a lot of questions come in already about, could we give examples of innovative projects? And we are avoiding doing that, honestly.
Thank you, Jen. And we'll also, just remind folks to revisit the reflection prompt that you'll see in the presentation deck that we'll link to when we send that to you. Um, can you say anything about what a successful collaborative project might look like?
Well, that's another big question. Um, I think that we would offer as a suggestion to reflect first on the question, is a collaboration necessary to undertake this project? And we would suggest that collaborations are hard. If they are to be successful, they certainly require clarity around roles, lots of communication, and defining expectations up front, and also making sure that everyone is aware, and this is related to expectations, I would say, about the timeline. To say a few things. Again, there's lots of information out there about what makes a successful collaboration, but I think we would offer those key things.
Thank you, Jen. Alrighty, next question. Can you say more about applications to support literary programs versus innovation projects?
Well, um, we have gotten some questions coming in over the past couple days about um, programs versus projects. So I think that's what you mean. And I do think that this is an important point also to underscore. And we would separate these two for the purposes of this open call. We're focused on projects. And when we say projects, we're talking about things that are finite. Again, they have a start date and they have an end date. Programs are things that are ongoing. Another way of thinking about programs is that they are offered to audiences in fulfillment of a mission. And the projects that the Literary Arts Fund, is looking to support are taking on or trying to tackle things that are kind of in the way of you fulfilling your mission, if that helps. So again, finite, time-bound, concrete, specific, as opposed to an ongoing offering that's on your, on mission to an audience. So I hope that helps.
Great. Thank you. Alrighty. Can an organization that primarily serves youth serve as a fiscal agent or sponsor for an organization that serves adult writers?
Sure. Again, fiscal sponsors certainly need to have 501(c)(3) status, and they also need to be in the business of being fiscal sponsors. But it is the organization or publisher that is applying to the fund to do the project, not the fiscal sponsor, that needs to meet the Literary Arts Fund's eligibility requirements. Again, not the fiscal sponsor. So your fiscal sponsor doesn't have to meet the eligibility requirements as well as you, the applicant, just you, the applicant.
Right. Next question. Are organizations that support writers as one aspect of our programming, but not as the sole focus, eligible to apply?
Thanks for that. That also comes up quite a bit. So, multi-arts organizations and publications that have different kinds of content are eligible to apply, assuming you meet all of the Literary Arts Fund's eligibility criteria. But we would stress that serving writers, creative writers, should be a part of your mission and your program, substantially a part of your programs and content. And if it's helpful to have a number equivalent to the word substantially, we would think about at least half of your programming or half of your publication's content should be literary.
Great. Okay. If we receive an innovation project grant, are we still eligible to apply for and potentially receive a general operating grant?
Yes.
Great. Yes, that one's easy to answer. Um, do collaborators need to meet all the fund's eligibility requirements?
No. Again, you can, if you're putting forward a collaborative project, collaborators can be of any kind. You can collaborate with organizations and other artistic disciplines. You can collaborate with for-profit entities. It doesn't matter. However, if you are going to direct a subaward, so part of the grant award that you might receive to a collaborator, that collaborator does need to meet the Literary Arts Fund's eligibility criteria.
Okay, got a few more I want to get to. When you
Okay.
say the project has to ultimately strengthen literary arts nonprofits' abilities to serve creative writers, what does that mean?
So again, um, what what the fund will be looking for is a through line that ultimately arrives at helping you help writers. And when we think about supporting literary arts nonprofits, we think about making sure that we're supporting organizations and publishers that serve creative writers in making their work, making creative work, and sharing it with readers and the public.
I've got a couple of questions that relate to budget.
Okay.
So, do we have to use the Literary Arts Fund's budget template?
No, again, uh, you don't. We have included a budget template in hopes that it would be helpful. And perhaps it would be helpful in uh, one of two ways. One, in case you may not know what a project budget looks like and or have never prepared one before, you can certainly use the template. If you have experience and have other project budgets, and maybe you're even putting forward an application for a project that you're fundraising for or have already successfully raised some funds for, and you have a project budget that's good to go, you don't need to use that project template. But again, it might be helpful for you to take a look at it because it does give you a sense of the kinds of financial content that the fund will be looking for in its assessment process. So again, income sources, what's pending, what's committed, do you have outside funding or not? Again, not a requirement, and not something that will make your application more competitive if you have it. And on the expense side, just really the details, especially about what those items mean, uh, will be important. So, long answer, short question, but I hope that was helpful. Use it if it is. Don't use it if it isn't. We are just trying to do what we can to be of service to you as you complete the application.
Okay, another budget related question. Can I give a subaward to a collaborator that doesn't meet the Literary Arts Fund's eligibility requirements? Which I feel like you've already answered.
I think I did. Yes, I think I did.
You did.
Yeah, okay, great.
So just with an eye on the clock, one more question.
Okay,
Well, I'm kind of combining multiple questions. Several people are putting forward
good.
specific ideas and wanting to receive feedback and wanting to
Yes,
know if we can do that.
yes. Um, we appreciate that and we understand wanting that feedback. We really do. Again, we are trying to keep this process open and we would say, well, we would say right up top that we're not able to offer that feedback in advance. Uh, so I just want to be clear about that. What we would say though is that if you feel like you have a project idea that aligns with the description and goal of the Literary Arts Fund's Innovation Project grants, also you feel like you have the capacity to undertake both the application, which again will take time and effort. There will be things to produce that you may not be able to cut and paste from other applications. So this application will take time and effort. And if you feel like you have the capacity to undertake a project we would encourage you to really think about applying if you meet the eligibility criteria. Um, Again, it's really up to you to assess whether or not you have the capacity to do that, recognizing that this will be highly competitive. Again, it's a limited amount that will be granted, and the fund is looking for very specific, new, forward-thinking projects that address critical challenges. Um, we would also say this: if you apply and you don't receive funding, and this is something we'll cover in January when we talk about general operating grants, we would encourage you to consider reapplying. We are here for a total of 5 years. We aim to have open calls. If you are not funded, save your work. Think about applying again in future years.
Thank you, Jen. We are at time, so that concludes the Q&A and our info session today. If you had a question about the Innovation Project Grant Program or application that we weren't able to get to, again, you can email us at grants@literaryaartsfund.org. We want to thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to reading your applications and seeing you at our next online event. Take care.
Thanks, Mona and Moxie. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.